Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. We love to really dig into a specific piece of advice or a study or a quote and really kind of unpack it. And that's exactly what we're doing today.
Yeah, and this one is particularly interesting to me, I think, because it's so short and sweet. But it's
Hmm.
about something that I think we all struggle with, which is, arguments or
Right.
disagreements.
Navigating those difficult
Well
conversations.
said.
And we've got this excerpt here that's really interesting because it basically tells you what types of people to just avoid arguing with altogether.
Yeah, it almost feels like a survival guide for your own sanity.
It really does. And I'm going to read this verbatim because
Yeah.
I think the way that it's worded is so important. So the quote says, "Don't get into arguments with liars, selfish, rude, know-it-alls, hypocrites, or idiots. They will drag you down to their level." So
Wow.
that's what we're unpacking today.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
What jumps out at you just reading that list of people? Anything surprising or anything you would add or change?
It's almost like a taxonomy of difficult personalities, right? Like each one represents a communication style that makes genuine, like productive dialogue nearly impossible. And I think that's what's so interesting about this is it's not just about like disagreeing. I think healthy debate can be great, but this is about encountering sort of a wall of resistance that's rooted in something deeper.
Yeah, so let's break it down one by one and talk about, what the advice is really getting at here. So,
Yeah.
so take the liar, for example. It's not just that they're, being dishonest, right? It's more about how that dishonesty sort of poisons the well of the entire interaction.
Exactly. And I think, a liar, especially a skilled one, they're not just like bending the truth. They're creating a distorted reality where facts are malleable and accountability is non-existent. So it's like, imagine trying to build a house on a foundation of like shifting sand. That's what arguing with a chronic liar can feel like.
Yeah, it's a recipe for frustration. And speaking of frustrating, let's talk about the know-it-all. I think we've all encountered this type, maybe even been guilty of it ourselves at times.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but what is it about the know-it-all that makes it so difficult to actually engage with them?
The know-it-all thrives on being right even when they're wrong, and they mistake arrogance for confidence and often lack the self-awareness to recognize, how their behavior affects others. So you'll see this, in meetings where they dominate the conversation,
Yeah.
dismiss other people's ideas. They resist any new information that might challenge their worldview.
I know the type. I once had a colleague who, in a brainstorming session, literally said, "That's not how it's done," to every suggestion anybody made.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a creativity killer. But, in the spirit of practicality, let's kind of dive into the why behind this advice. Like, what are the real world consequences of, choosing to engage in these arguments? It's got to be more than just wasted time. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. Every time you engage in a pointless argument, you're depleting your emotional reserves. It's like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach, right? The stress hormone, cortisol surges. You might lose sleep, replaying the argument in your head. And over time, this can really impact your overall well-being.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a ripple effect, right? It's not just the moment itself, it's how you carry that forward.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder, are there any early warning signs like subtle cues that we can look for to maybe kind of avoid these situations in the first place?
You can absolutely learn to spot these personality types, early on. And, liars, for example, often have inconsistencies in their stories. Selfish individuals rarely ask about you or your perspective. Rude people interrupt, constantly dismiss your thoughts. Know-it-alls, as we discussed, have an answer for everything and are quick to, shut down differing opinions. Hypocrites will contradict their own actions with their words. And individuals lacking reasoning skills might struggle to follow logical arguments or make impulsive decisions that defy common sense.
So recognizing those signs is the first step. But this advice doesn't mean that we should just become passive doormats.
Right. Yeah.
Like there are times when we have to stand up for ourselves or what we believe in.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This isn't about never disagreeing. It's about being selective, choosing your battles, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes a difficult conversation is unavoidable, and that's where, assertive communication skills come into play. But if you're dealing with someone who exhibits these traits consistently and shows no willingness to engage in good faith, sometimes the best course of action is to disengage.
That's a powerful takeaway. Knowing when to walk away is just as important as knowing how to, argue effectively.
Exactly. It's all about protecting your energy and your mental well-being.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. It really makes you think about your own experiences and who you choose to engage with.
Yeah, as you go about your day, I'd encourage you to reflect on your own interactions. Who are the people who consistently drain your energy or make it difficult to have a productive conversation? And what strategies can you employ to navigate those relationships more effectively?
Food for thought indeed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, choose your battles wisely.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and we are out.
Okay, good one.
Awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely.